Hi folks, it's Mike here. What you just heard was a 44-note sequence with varied timing and direction on a synthesizer with a 16-step sequencer using a technique that I will call ARP sequencing. ARP sequencing is simply using the arpeggiator in conjunction with the sequencer on the Korg Minilogue to produce longer and more interesting sequences. How is it done? Let's get into it. Let's start by loading a simpler example. That was a 10-note sequence using only 4 steps of the sequencer. Let's turn off the arpeggiator and just listen to the sequencer. You can hear 4 different 4-note chords. Using the step editor, we can see the 4-note chords. First chord, second chord, third chord, and fourth chord. Why, if we have 4-note chords, are we not hearing all of them? The answer is simple. The gate length parameter is different for each step. Step 1 has a gate length of 98%. Step 2 is 75%, or 3/4. Step 3 is 50%, or 2/4. Step 4 is 25%, or 1/4. So we have 4/4, 3/4, 2/4, and 1/4, resulting in a sequence that plays 4 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes, and 1 note, for a total of 10 notes. By the way, I used 98% instead of 100%, since setting to 100% occasionally causes glitches in the notes. I'll slow this down for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Well, at first this may seem confusing. Let's turn off the sequencer and just play the arpeggiator. If I play a 4-note chord, it repeats as we expect, but if I let go after 4 notes, it will only play those 4. Now if I let go after only 3 notes play, I'll get 3 notes despite the fact I'm holding 4 keys down. Similarly with 2 and 1 notes, if I can do it. So despite the fact I press 4 keys, the notes I hear depends on how long the keys are held. And this is exactly what happens with the sequencer. Instead of the keyboard sending notes to the arpeggiator, the sequencer is sending the notes with the gate time determining how long the notes are held. Now let's load a 4-step sequence and show you that the order of the notes matters. If we listen closely, we notice that the order of the notes is different for each step of the sequencer. But if we turn off the arpeggiator and just listen to the sequencer, we see we have the same chord each time. So how are we getting a different pattern with each measure? Just like when we play the arpeggiator in manual 1 mode, the order we press the keys changes the sequence. Let's just use the arpeggiator to show this. Let's load a simple 1-step sequence to demonstrate this. Let's go to the step edit mode. We see we have 1 step, with a 4-note chord, C, G, D, and A. Let's change the order we enter the notes and see what happens. You see, as we change the entry order, the pattern changes, but notice the display always sorts the notes from low to high. It doesn't show the order you entered them, but the order obviously does matter. Now let's change the resolution of the sequencer and change the previous sequence, making it twice as long. Here we use the manual 2 mode of the Arpeggiator. If we go to sequence edit mode, we see that we have a 4-step sequence. The step length is 4, and the step resolution is 1/2. Now the Arpeggiator is always 1/4 note resolution. You can't change that. The result is now 8 notes per step for a total of 32 notes. Now let's change the gate length for that same sequence so we get a different number of notes for each step. In this case, we're going to get 8, 7, 6, and 5 notes. Let's look at the gate length parameter for each of the steps. Step 1's gate length is 98%, or 8/8. Step 2 is 87%, which is 7/8. Step 3 is 75%, which is 6/8. Then step 4 is 62%, which is 5/8. So we have 8/8, 7/8, 6/8, 5/8 for a length of 8, 7, 6, and 5. Okay, now let's go back to the opening sequence and see how we did it. The Arpeggiator is in manual 1 mode, so the order of the notes matters. Pressing the Step Edit button, we can look at each step and the timing. Step 1 is a single note with 25% gate time. Step 2 is a 4-note chord with 98% gate time. Step 3, 1 note, 4 notes, 4 notes, 3 notes with a 75% gate time, 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes with a 50% gate time, 2, 2, 4, 2, 2, and 4. So you can see the number of notes and the gate time are going together so that we can get that pattern to work. Now, we can't tell the order that we enter the notes, unfortunately, because they all get sorted from low to high when they're displayed. Maybe Korg will fix this someday. But what happens if we change that gate length of the first note from 25%, which is set to now, to 50%? Let's go back to step 1, change 25% to 50, play a note. If you notice and listen closely, that first note was played twice. Before it was played once, because we changed the gate time from 25% to 50%. If you'd missed it, I'll change it once more. This time I'll change it from 50% to 75%, which should give us 3 notes. there it is. The first note's now being repeated 3 times because the gate length is 75%. So you get it. The gate length is determining how many times that single note gets played. So in conclusion, using the sequencer in conjunction with the arpeggiator allows us to make longer and more interesting sequences. I've studied the manual carefully, and this isn't described anywhere, so hopefully this tutorial has helped. Since I'm using the original Minilogue here, I can't be sure that this technique works with the Minilogue XD, so you'll have to try it yourself if you have that synthesizer. I'd be interested to hear if it works. That's all for now. Please feel free to leave any comments or any questions, and as always, thanks for watching.